The research ship Aurora's Edge moved slowly through the dark space near the outer rim. Dr. Henry Caldwell sat in his chair on the bridge, looking at the strange readings on his screen. At 73 years old, Henry had seen many odd things in space, but this was different. The energy signals coming from the empty area ahead were unlike anything he had studied before. "Doctor, we're getting closer to the source," said Lisa Park from the pilot's seat. She was young, maybe 30, with steady hands and sharp eyes. Henry trusted her flying skills completely. "Good. Keep us steady, Lisa," Henry replied in his calm voice. His gray hair was thin now, and his face showed the lines of many years, but his mind was still sharp as a knife. Jake Morrison worked at the communications station, his fingers moving over the controls. "Still no response to our signals, Doctor. Whatever's out there isn't talking to us." Danny Rodriguez stood near. The weapons station, even though their research ship only had basic defense systems. As security chief, he always looked worried when they found something new. "I don't like this, Doc. My gut says something's wrong." Henry smiled a little. "Danny, your gut has kept us alive for 5 years, but we're scientists. We have to look. The old man had spent 40 years studying alien life forms. He had seen creatures that could melt steel with their breath and others that could read minds. But he never showed fear. His team respected him for that. They also respected him because he always brought them home safe." "Energy readings are getting stronger," Lisa said. "Whatever's making these signals is huge." Henry leaned forward in his chair. Through the front window, he could see nothing but stars and empty space. But the instruments showed something big was there, hidden somehow. "Doctor!" Jake's voice was sharp with worry. "I'm picking up massive energy spikes. Something's coming." The space in front of them began to ripple like water. The stars seemed to bend and twist. Then, slowly, a ship appeared. But calling it a ship was like calling a mountain a rock. The alien vessel was enormous, dark as space itself, and covered with strange patterns that seemed to move in the light. "Holy hell," Danny whispered. The alien ship was at least 10 times bigger than their research vessel. It looked like it was built for war. Strange weapons stuck out from its sides like the spines of some deadly creature. Red lights moved along its surface like blood flowing through veins. "Lisa, get us out of here. Now!" Henry ordered, but his voice stayed calm. Lisa's hands flew over the controls, but nothing happened. "I can't, Doctor. Something's holding us. We're stuck." A bright blue light shot out from the alien ship and wrapped around the Aurora's Edge. Henry felt a strange pulling feeling, like invisible hands grabbing their ship and pulling it closer to the huge vessel. "They're bringing us in," Jake said. His face was pale with fear. Henry stood up slowly. "Everyone stay calm. We don't know what they want yet." But even as he said it, Henry knew this wasn't going to be a friendly meeting. The alien ship had gun, ports opening all along its sides. This was a warship built to fight and conquer. The Aurora's Edge was pulled into a huge bay inside the alien vessel. The bay was big enough to hold 20 ships their size. Strange lights cast weird shadows on the metal walls. The air felt heavy and wrong. "Atmosphere scan shows it's breathable," Jake reported. "But there's something else in the air. Some kind of chemical I can't identify." "Probably to keep prisoners weak," Danny said grimly. He checked his sidearm, though Henry doubted it would help much against whatever lived on this ship. Heavy footsteps echoed through the bay. The sounds came from all directions, getting closer. Henry counted at least 20 sets of feet, maybe more. "Remember," Henry said quietly to his team, "we're scientists. We observe, we learn, and we survive." The airlock of their ship hissed open, though none of them had touched the controls. Cold air rushed in, carrying a smell like metal and something else, something that reminded Henry of wild animals. The creatures that entered their ship were tall, at least 7 feet, with dark scales covering their bodies. They had long arms that ended in claws sharp enough to cut metal. Their heads were like a mix between a lizard and a wolf, with multiple red eyes that seemed to see everything at once. They moved with the smooth grace of born hunters. The biggest one stepped forward. It wore armor made from some kind of black metal, and scars covered its visible scales. When it spoke, its voice was deep and rough like grinding stone. "Humans, it said in perfect English. "You are now prisoners of the Zephyrian Empire. I am War Chief Vextar. You will come with us." Lisa grabbed Henry's arm. "Doctor, what do we do?" Henry patted her hand gently. "We do what they say for now, child, but keep your eyes open." The aliens marched them through long corridors inside their ship. The walls were covered with pictures of battles and conquests. Henry saw images of many different alien species, all defeated by these Zephyrians. Some of the pictures showed creatures being hunted for sport. Danny walked close to Henry. "Doc, these things are bad news. Look at those trophy rooms." They passed several rooms filled with the skulls and weapons of defeated enemies. The Zephyrians clearly like to collect souvenirs from their victories. "I see them, Danny. Just stay." "Ready." The Zephyrians brought them to a large room with metal cages along the walls. Some of the cages held other prisoners, alien species Henry didn't recognize. They all looked scared and hurt. War Chief Vextar stood in the center of the room. Studying each human prisoner, his multiple eyes moved independently like a chameleon's, taking in every detail. "You humans are small," he said with what might have been amusement. "Weak. No claws, no natural weapons, no thick hide. How did your species survive long enough to reach space?" Jake started to answer, but Henry held up a hand to stop him. Vextar continued, "It does not matter. You will provide entertainment for my warriors. We have a hunting preserve on the next deck. You will be released there, given a small head start, and then my soldiers will hunt you for practice." Lisa went pale. Danny's hand moved toward his weapon, but Henry caught his wrist and shook his head slightly. "The hunt will begin in 1 hour," Vextar announced. "Try to make it interesting. The longer you survive, the more honor you bring to your deaths." The other Zephyrian warriors laughed, a sound like rocks falling down a cliff. They clearly thought this would be easy and fun, but Henry just stood there, looking at Vextar with calm, measuring eyes. The old man showed no fear at all. In fact, he seemed almost interested. "Predators, you say?" Henry said quietly, his voice carrying clearly through the room. Vextar's eyes focused on him. "You have something to say, old human?" Henry smiled, and for just a moment, something dangerous flickered in his eyes. Something that made even the tall alien take a small step back. "Son," Henry said in the same calm voice he used for teaching, "I trained the first ones." The room went completely quiet. Even the other prisoners stopped moving. Vextar's multiple eyes all turned to focus on this small gray-haired human who dared to speak without fear. "What did you say?" the war chief growled. Henry's smile grew, wider, but it wasn't a friendly smile anymore. It was the smile of someone who knew secrets that could change everything. Vextar stepped closer to Henry, his claws scraping against the metal floor. The sound echoed in the quiet prison room like fingernails on glass. His red eyes burned with anger and confusion. "Explain yourself, human," the war chief demanded. "What do you mean you trained the first ones?" Henry didn't step back, even though the alien towered over him. Instead, he clasped his hands behind his back like a teacher addressing a classroom. Lisa, Jake, and Danny stared at their elderly colleague with wide eyes. They had never seen him act like this before. 40 years ago, Henry began in his calm teaching voice, "I was part of a military project. Not the kind you read about in history books. The secret kind. We called it Project Apex." Jake whispered to Lisa, "I've never heard of any Project Apex." Henry heard him and nodded. "That's because it was classified above your security level." "Son, above most people's security level." Vextar's warriors laughed, but their leader held up a clawed hand for silence. Something about the old human's confidence made him curious. "Go on," Vextar said. "Tell us about this project." Henry walked slowly around the room, looking at the trophy skulls on the walls. He stopped in front of one that belonged to a creature with fangs longer than his fingers. "Humanity had just made contact with its first hostile alien species," Henry continued. "We learned that the galaxy was full of predators, natural-born killers like yourselves, creatures that had evolved over millions of years to hunt and kill." Danny shifted nervously. "Doc, what are you doing?" Henry ignored him and kept talking to Vextar. "Our military leaders realized we had a problem. Humans aren't natural predators. We're smart, but we're soft. We don't have claws or thick skin or poison. In a fight against real predators, we would lose. The Zephyrian warriors nodded in agreement. This made sense to them. So they came to me, Henry said, turning back to face Vextar. I was young then, a specialist in animal behavior and genetics. They asked me a simple question. Could we make humans into predators? Lisa grabbed Henry's arm. Doctor, you're scaring me. What are you talking about? Henry patted her hand gently. Don't worry, child. You'll understand soon. Vextar crossed, his arms, interested now despite himself. And what did you tell them? I told them the truth, Henry replied. We couldn't change what humans are, but we could change what humans could become. The old man walked over to one of the empty cages and ran his finger along the metal bars. They were thick enough to hold creatures much stronger than humans. We took volunteers, Henry said, young soldiers who wanted to protect Earth. We enhanced them, made them faster, stronger, smarter. But most importantly, we taught them to think, like predators. Jake shook his head. That's impossible, Doctor. Genetic enhancement like that? The technology doesn't exist. Henry smiled at his young communications officer. The technology you know about doesn't exist, Jake. But there's a lot you don't know about what humanity can do when it needs to. Vexitar leaned forward, his interest growing. These enhanced humans? Where are they now? Oh, they're still around, Henry said casually, still doing their job, protecting humanity from threats like you. The Zephyrian warriors started laughing again, but Vextar silenced them with a look. Something about the old human's tone bothered him. You speak as if these enhanced humans could challenge us, Vextar said. Challenge you? Henry chuckled. Son, they could teach you things about being a predator that you never imagined. Danny stepped forward angrily. Doc, stop this. You're making them mad. But Henry kept talking, his voice getting stronger. The thing about natural predators is that they're limited by their biology. A tiger is a magnificent hunter, but it can only hunt like a tiger. It can't adapt. It can't learn new tricks. It just follows its instincts. He turned to look directly at Vextar. But a human who chooses to become a predator, that's different. That's evolution with purpose. Lisa was getting frightened now. Doctor, please, let's just do what they want. Henry shook his head. I'm sorry, Lisa, but I can't let these creatures hurt my students, and I can't let them hurt you. Vexitar tilted his head like a confused animal. Your students? Every human I helped train calls me that, Henry explained. I taught them everything I know about hunting, tracking, and survival. But more than that, I taught them to think. A thinking predator is the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. The war chief was getting impatient. Enough talk, old man. If these enhanced humans exist, where are they? Why aren't they here to save you? Henry walked over to the communication panel on the wall. It was clearly designed for alien hands, but he studied it carefully. Well, that's simple, he said. They don't know I need saving yet. Before any of the Zephyrians could stop him, Henry's hands moved over the alien controls with surprising speed. Despite the strange design, he seemed to understand how it worked. Stop him! Vextar roared, but it was too late. Henry had already activated the communication system. A soft beep indicated that a message was being transmitted. Two warriors grabbed Henry and pulled him away from the panel, but he didn't struggle. He just smiled. What did you do? Vextar demanded. I sent a message on a frequency that hasn't been used in 40 years, Henry replied calmly. A frequency only my former students know about. Jake was working frantically at his portable scanner. Doctor, I can trace the signal. It's just a simple text message. Short range, basic encryption. Vexitar looked at one of his warriors, who was also scanning the transmission. The alien nodded and spoke in his own language. Then he turned to his leader. War Chief, we intercepted the message. It says, Grandfather to pack leaders. The students need a reminder about respect. My coordinates are attached. The Zephyrian warriors burst into laughter. Even Vextar seemed amused. That's it? The War Chief asked. Grandfather to pack leaders? This is your great call for help? Henry nodded seriously. That's all they need to hear. And how long do you expect us to wait for your imaginary rescue? Vextar mocked. Henry looked at his watch, an old mechanical one that had been his father's. Oh, not long. My students are very punctual. I'd say Maybe 2 hours at most. Vextar laughed so hard his scales rattled. 2 hours? Do you think we're fools, old man? Even if your enhanced humans exist, even if they got your message, how could they find us? How could they reach us? We're in deep space, surrounded by my entire fleet. That's a good point, Henry admitted. I suppose we'll just have to wait and see. The war chief decided he had heard enough. Fine, we'll wait, but not because I believe your stories, because I want to see the look on your face when no one comes, when you realize that your last hope was just an old man's fantasy. He turned to his warriors. Double the guard. Scan all approaches to our fleet. If anything comes within weapons range, destroy it immediately. Yes, War Chief, they replied in unison. Vextar looked back at Henry one last time. 2 hours, old man, then you and your crew go into the hunting preserve, and I promise you, the hunt will be very painful. As the Zephyrians left the prison room, Lisa, Jake, and Danny crowded around Henry. Doctor, what have you done? Lisa whispered. There is no Project Apex, is there? You're trying to buy us time, but there's no one coming to help us. Henry sat down on a metal bench and sighed. For the first time since their capture, he looked every one of his 73 years. I'm sorry I never told you, he said quietly. But yes, Project Apex was real, and yes, I helped train the first generation of enhanced humans. Jake stared at him. But that's impossible. The genetic modification, the technology. Jake, my boy, Henry said sadly, there are things about Earth's history that even our best scientists don't know, things we had to keep secret to protect everyone. Danny knelt beside him. Doc, even if it's true, how can they help us? We're surrounded by an alien fleet. Henry looked up at his 3 young colleagues, and for a moment, his eyes seemed to glow with an inner fire. Because, Danny, he said softly, I didn't just teach them to be predators. I taught them to be the kind of predators that other predators have nightmares about. Outside the ship, space looked empty and peaceful, but Henry knew that wouldn't last much longer. His children were coming. 1 hour and 47 minutes after Henry sent his message, alarms began screaming throughout the Zephyrian fleet. War Chief Vexitar rushed to the command bridge of his flagship, his claws clicking rapidly on the metal floor. Report! He barked at his sensor operator. War Chief, we're detecting spatial distortions on the edge of our scanning range, the operator replied nervously. Multiple contacts approaching at high speed. How many? Vextar demanded. 17 ships, sir, but they're strange. They don't match any known human designs in our database. Vextar studied the tactical display. The approaching ships were moving in a formation that looked almost like a pack of wolves surrounding prey. They moved together, with perfect coordination, like they shared one mind. Put it on the main screen, he ordered. The bridge's large display showed the blackness of space. At first, nothing seemed different. Then, slowly, shapes began to appear. The ships seemed to bend light around them, making them hard to see even when you knew where to look. Stealth technology, whispered the weapons officer. More advanced than anything we've seen from humans before. As the ships got closer, their true shapes became visible. They were sleek and predatory, built for speed and hunting. Each one was painted black with silver markings that looked like wolf heads howling at stars. War Chief, the communications officer called out. We're receiving a transmission. Put it through, Vextar ordered. A human voice came through the speakers, calm and cold as space itself. This is Captain Sam Mitchell of the Wolf Pack. You are holding someone very important to us. Release him now, and we might let you live. Vexitar laughed, but it sounded forced. Human, you are outnumbered 10-1. My fleet has over 200 ships. You have 17. Numbers don't matter when you're fighting children, came the reply. Your choice. Release the old man or learn why your species should have stayed home. In the prison room below, Henry heard the alarms and smiled. Lisa, Jake, and Danny looked at him with amazement and fear. Doctor, who is Sam Mitchell? Lisa asked. My first student, Henry replied proudly. I found him when he was 19 years old. Angry young man from the streets of Detroit. Perfect candidate for the program. Jake was scanning the ship's communication frequencies with his portable device. Doctor, I'm picking up chatter from the bridge. They're talking about 17 ships against their entire fleet. Only 17? Henry looked disappointed. Sam must have left the others to guard Earth. That's probably wise. Danny stared at him. Doc, 17 ships against 200? That's suicide. No, Danny, Henry said quietly. That's education. Back on the bridge, Vextar was studying the tactical display. The 17 human ships had spread out in what looked like a hunting formation. They were moving slowly now, almost lazily, like sharks circling their prey. War Chief, should we attack? Asked his weapons commander. Before Vextar could answer, something impossible happened. One of his patrol ships, a fast scout vessel with a crew of 20, simply vanished from the sensors. Where did it go? Vextar roared. Unknown, sir. It just disappeared. No explosion, no debris. It's like it was never there. Another ship vanished. Then another. Each time there was no sign of battle, no energy weapons firing. The Zephyrian ships were just gone. All ships, open fire on the human vessels, Vextar commanded. The Zephyrian fleet opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams and missiles filled the space around the 17 human ships. But when the light cleared, all 17 were still there, untouched. How is that possible? The weapons officer gasped. One of the human ships moved closer to the flagship. As it approached, a new voice came over the communications channel. This one was female, younger than the first. This is Lieutenant Kate Brooks. We've disabled 12 of your ships. Their crews are alive but unconscious. You have 2 minutes to release our teacher before we get serious. Vextar's eyes went wide. 12 ships? But we only saw 3 disappear. Check your fleet status, the voice said calmly. The sensor operator's claws trembled as he worked his controls. War Chief, 9 more ships are not responding. They're still there, but all systems are offline. No life signs detected, but no bodies either. That's impossible, Vextar whispered. How did they board our ships without us knowing? In the prison room, Henry was explaining to his crew. You see, the thing about being a predator is that it's not just about being strong or fast. It's about thinking ahead, planning, using your enemy's expectations against them. But Doctor, Jake protested, how can so few ships defeat so many? Because they're not fighting like ships, Jake. They're hunting like wolves. And the most important thing about wolves is that they don't attack the prey directly. They isolate it, they confuse it, they make it panic. As if to prove Henry's point, more Zephyrian ships began disappearing from the sensors. Not destroyed, just gone. The remaining crews were getting desperate, firing at shadows and empty space. On the bridge, Vextar was losing control of his fleet. All ships, form a defensive circle around the flagship. Don't let them separate us. But it was too late. The human ships moved through the Zephyrian fleet like ghosts. They appeared where they shouldn't be, struck without warning, and vanished before anyone could react. War Chief, the communications officer called out. We're getting reports from the ships that were boarded. The crews are alive, but they're all unconscious. Some kind of gas, they think. When they woke up, all their weapons and engines were disabled. Gas? Vextar was confused. What kind of warriors use gas instead of weapons? The answer came over the radio from Captain Mitchell. The kind who don't need to kill to win. You wanted to hunt, reptile. Let us show you how it's done. Suddenly, the lights went out on the flagship's bridge. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light. The sensor displays flickered and died. What's happening? Vexatar demanded. Internal systems failure, his engineer reported. Something is interfering with our computer networks. A new sound echoed through the ship, the soft hiss of gas flowing. Through the air vents, several Zephyrian warriors collapsed, unconscious before they hit the floor. Masks! Everyone put on breathing masks, Vexatar ordered. But as he reached for his own mask, he heard footsteps behind him. Slow, confident footsteps. He turned around and saw something that made his blood run cold. A human stood at the entrance to the bridge. But this wasn't like any human Vextar had seen before. The man was tall and moved with the fluid grace of a natural predator. His eyes reflected the red emergency lights like an animal's. Most disturbing. Of all, he had entered the most secure part of the ship without triggering a single alarm. Hello? The human said in a friendly voice. I'm Captain Sam Mitchell. I believe you have my teacher. Vexatar raised his claws. but Sam didn't seem concerned. Instead, he looked around the bridge with casual interest. "Nice ship," Sam commented. "A bit showy for my taste, but impressive. I especially like the trophy room, though I have to say collecting skulls from defeated enemies is kind of primitive." "How did you get aboard my ship?" Vextar snarled. Sam smiled, and Vextar saw that his teeth were slightly sharper than normal human teeth. "Trade secret. Let's just say that 40 years of enhancement has its advantages." More Zephyrian warriors rushed onto the bridge, weapons raised. Sam looked at them with mild curiosity. "You know," he said conversationally, "the old man taught us that the best predators don't rely on strength alone. They use intelligence, psychology, fear." He took a step forward, and something about the way he moved made all the Zephyrian warriors step back. "He also taught us that the most dangerous predator is the one that doesn't look dangerous," Sam continued. "The one that gets close to its prey before the prey realizes it's being hunted." Vextar tried to speak, but found his voice had become a whisper. What are you?" "Me?" Sam looked genuinely surprised by the question. "I'm just a student. But I learned from the best teacher in the galaxy." The ship shuddered as more systems went offline. Through the bridge windows, Vextar could see that most of his fleet was now dark and lifeless. "Your fleet is disabled," Sam reported. "Your crews are alive but unconscious. Your weapons are offline. Your engines are dead. And right now, 16 of my pack are spread throughout this ship, making sure no one gets hurt." He walked over to the command chair and sat down casually. "Now, I believe you have an old man who belongs to us. I'd like him back, please." Vextar's mind was reeling. In less than 2 hours, his entire fleet had been neutralized by 17 ships and their crews. No one had been killed, but they had been completely helpless to stop it. "Who are you people?" he whispered. Sam's smile grew wider, and for a moment, Vextar saw something in his eyes that made him understand true fear. "We're the children of Earth," Sam said quietly, "and someone just threatened our family." Down in the prison room, Henry heard the sound of footsteps approaching. The door opened, and a young woman entered. She was small and looked harmless, but she moved like Sam had, with the confidence of an apex predator. "Hello, teacher," she said with genuine affection. "Sorry we're late." Henry's face lit up with joy. "Kate, my dear girl, you're right on time." As Kate Brooks cut through their chains with a tool that looked like a small laser, Lisa stared at Henry with new understanding. "Doctor," she said slowly, "just what did you create?" Henry looked at Kate with pride, then back at his crew. "The future," he said simply. "I created humanity's future." In the command room of the Zephyrian flagship, War Chief Vextar sat slumped in his chair, staring at the tactical display. Every ship in his fleet showed the same status: disabled, crews, unconscious, weapons offline. In less than 3 hours, his mighty war fleet had been reduced to floating metal. Sam Mitchell stood nearby, watching the alien commander with calm interest. Other enhanced humans had appeared throughout the bridge, moving like shadows made real. They didn't threaten the remaining conscious Zephyrians, but their presence was more frightening than any weapon. "I don't understand," Vextar said quietly. "We are predators. We evolved to hunt and kill. We have conquered dozens of species across the galaxy. How did you defeat us so easily?" Sam pulled up a chair and sat down across from the war chief. "That's exactly the problem," he said. "You think being a predator is about being born with claws and teeth and thick skin." He gestured to one of his team members, a woman who looked like she could be someone's grandmother. "Meet Dr. Sarah Kim. She's 64 years old, weighs maybe 120 pounds, and could probably take apart your entire bridge crew without breaking a sweat." Dr. Kim smiled politely and waved. She looked completely harmless. "The old man taught us something important," Sam continued. "Natural predators are limited by their biology. They can only hunt the way their bodies allow them to hunt. But humans can choose to become whatever they need to become." Vextar looked at Dr. Kim with confusion. "She doesn't look dangerous." "That's the point," Sam explained. "Real predators don't advertise. They don't show off their claws or roar to scare their prey. They get close quietly, they learn their enemy's weaknesses, and they strike when the time is right. Down in the prison area, Henry was walking through the corridors with Kate Brooks and his research team. Lisa, Jake, and Danny stayed close to him, still trying to understand what they had witnessed. "Doctor," Lisa asked, "how many enhanced humans are there? The first generation?" "About 200, Henry replied. "All volunteers from the military, young people who wanted to protect Earth from hostile aliens." Jake was recording everything on his portable device. "What kind of enhancements did you give them?" Henry thought for a moment. "Improved reflexes, enhanced strength, better healing, sharper senses. But the most important enhancement wasn't physical." "What do you mean?" Danny asked. Kate answered for him. "He changed how we think. Enhanced pattern recognition, improved tactical thinking, better emotional control. He made us into perfect hunters by making us smarter, not just stronger." They passed several rooms where Zephyrian warriors lay unconscious on the floor. The aliens looked peaceful, like they were simply sleeping. "Will they be okay?" Lisa asked with concern. "Of course," Henry said. "We're not monsters. The gas just puts them to sleep for a few hours. No permanent harm." "But doctor, why didn't you kill them?" Danny asked. "They were going to hunt us for sport." Henry stopped walking and looked at his security chief seriously. "Danny, the moment we start killing for convenience, we become the same as them. The goal was never to destroy the Zephyrians. It was to teach them." They reached the bridge, where Sam was still talking to Vextar. The war chief looked up when Henry entered. "You," Vextar said. "You're really him, the one who created these things." "These people," Henry corrected gently. "And yes, I helped train them. But they became what they are through their own choice and hard work." Vexatar gestured weakly at the disabled displays around him. "How? How did 17 ships defeat 200? Henry sat down in another chair, moving slowly because of his age. "Would you like a lesson in advanced predator tactics?" Yes, Vextar admitted reluctantly. "Good. First lesson, predators don't fight fair. They use every advantage they can find." Henry pointed to one of the dark screens. "Your ships are designed for direct combat. Big guns, heavy armor, intimidating appearance. Very impressive." Sam picked up the explanation. "But they're also predictable. We studied Zephyrian tactics for weeks before coming here. You always attack in the same formations, always rely on superior firepower, always expect your enemies to be afraid of you." "Second lesson," Henry continued, "real predators hunt in packs. But pack hunting isn't just about numbers, it's about coordination. Each member of the pack has a role to play." Kate pointed to different areas of the ship. "While Sam was talking to you on the bridge, the rest of us were already inside your ship. Medical team disabled your crews safely. Tech team took control of your computers. Engineering team shut down your weapons and engines." "But how did you get inside?" Vexatar demanded. "Our security systems are the best in the galaxy." One of the enhanced humans, a young man who looked barely 20, stepped forward. "Security systems are just computers, sir, and computers can be tricked if you understand how they think." Henry smiled proudly. "Meet Tommy Chen. Before the enhancement program, he was just a kid from San Francisco who was good with computers. Now he can hack alien technology he's never seen before." Tommy nodded modestly. "The old man taught us that every system has weaknesses. You just have to be patient enough to find them." "Third lesson," Henry said to Vextar. "Fear is a weapon, but not the kind of fear you use. The obvious kind that makes lots of noise and shows off. The subtle kind. The kind that makes your enemy doubt themselves." Sam demonstrated by walking slowly around the war chief's chair. He didn't threaten or posture, but somehow his presence made Vextar more and more nervous. "We could have destroyed your fleet," Sam said quietly. "Blown up every ship, killed every crew member, but that would have been wasteful. Instead, we showed you that all your weapons and armor and natural advantages mean nothing against properly applied intelligence." "Fourth lesson," Henry continued. "A good predator knows when to stop. We could keep hunting your people across the galaxy. We could track down every Zephyrian ship and disable them all. But that's not the goal." Vexatar looked confused. "Then what is the goal?" Henry leaned forward in his chair. "To teach you that there's a better way to live than constant conquest and violence." Lisa had been listening quietly, but now she spoke. Up. Doctor, what happens to them now? Their fleet is disabled. Their crews are unconscious. That depends on them, Henry replied, looking at Vextar. They have a choice to make. Sam walked over to the communications station and began working the controls. Slowly, systems throughout the ship began coming back online. The lights returned. To normal, the displays flickered back to life, and the hum of working engines resumed. "What are you doing?" Vexatar asked suspiciously. "Giving you back your ship," Sam said simply. "And your fleet. And your crews." "Why?" Henry stood up slowly, his joints creaking with age. "Because the point wasn't to defeat you permanently. The point was to show you that you're not as superior as you thought." Jake was staring at the displays as the Zephyrian fleet came back, online. "Doctor, isn't this dangerous? What if they attack again?" "They won't," Kate said confidently. "Will you?" she asked Vextar directly. The war chief looked around at the enhanced humans scattered throughout his bridge. Each one looked calm and relaxed, but he now understood that appearances meant nothing with these creatures. "We could defeat you again," Sam said matter-of-factly. "More easily this time, since we know how your systems work. But we'd rather not have to." "What do you want from us?" Vextar asked. Henry walked over to the main display, which showed the tactical situation. All the Zephyrian ships were functioning normally, but they were surrounded by the 17 human vessels. "I want you to think," Henry said. "Your species has been conquering and destroying for how long? Centuries? Millennia?" "We are warriors," Vextar replied. "It is our nature." "But what have you built?" Henry asked. "What have you created? What legacy are you leaving besides fear and destruction?" The war chief had no answer. "The enhanced humans could have killed every Zephyrian in this fleet," Henry continued. "Instead, they chose to spare you. They chose to teach rather than destroy. Which approach do you think shows more strength?" Sam moved to stand beside Henry. "We're offering you a choice, war chief. You can keep doing what you've always done. Hunting weaker species for sport, conquering worlds because you can. Eventually, you'll encounter something stronger than you, and your species will be destroyed. Or," Henry added, "you can learn. You can discover what you might become if you use your natural abilities for something other than violence." Vextar looked around his bridge at his unconscious crew members, who were beginning to wake up. They looked confused and ashamed, not understanding how they had been defeated so easily. "And if we choose to learn?" Vextar asked quietly. Henry smiled, and for the first time it was a genuinely warm smile. "Then you become students, and I've never met a student I couldn't teach." The old man looked around at his enhanced humans, his children really, and then at his research crew. "The galaxy is full of species that mistake cruelty for strength," he said. "It's time they learned the difference." Vextar realized that everything he had believed about predators and prey, about strength and weakness, had been wrong. These humans had shown him a completely different way to think about power. For the first time in his life, the war chief of the Zephyrian Empire felt something he had never experienced before: humility. 3 weeks later, Henry Caldwell stood in what had once been the trophy room of the Zephyrian flagship. The skulls and weapons of defeated enemies were gone now, replaced with star charts, scientific equipment, and comfortable chairs arranged in a circle. What had been a monument to conquest had become a classroom. War Chief Vextar sat in one of those chairs, looking very different from the proud warrior who had captured Henry's research team. His armor was simpler now, more practical than intimidating. Most importantly, his multiple eyes held curiosity instead of arrogance. "Teacher Henry," Vextar said respectfully, "I still do not understand something. If your enhanced humans are so powerful, why do they remain hidden? Why not rule the galaxy openly?" Henry smiled and settled into his own chair. At 73, he moved more slowly than he used to, but his mind was as sharp as ever. Around him sat 15 Zephyrian warriors who had chosen to learn instead of fight. "That's an excellent question," Henry replied. "Sam, would you like to answer that?" Captain Sam Mitchell stood near the room's large window, looking out at the combined human and Zephyrian fleet. The ships floated together peacefully now, sharing resources and information. Because ruling through fear isn't really ruling, Sam said. It's just bullying on a large scale. Real strength comes from inspiring others to be better, not forcing them to obey. One of the younger Zephyrians, a warrior named Kexri, raised a clawed hand. But if you have superior power, doesn't that give you the right to use it? Henry leaned forward in his chair. Kexri, let me ask you something. Before we met, when your people conquered weaker species, how did those species feel about you? They feared us, Kexri replied. Honestly, they hated us. And did that fear and hatred make your empire stronger or weaker? The young Zephyrian thought about this. Weaker, I suppose. We always had to watch for rebellions. We could never trust the species we conquered. Exactly, Henry nodded. Fear is a tool, but it's a very limited tool. It can make people obey you temporarily, but it can never make them want to help you succeed. Lisa Park, who had become fascinated by these lessons, spoke up from her place near the door. Doctor, can you explain the difference between a predator and a protector? Henry's face lit up with pride. Even his research crew was learning to ask the right questions. A predator takes what it needs and moves on, he explained. A protector invests in making things better for everyone. The enhanced humans could hunt and kill any threat to Earth, but instead, they try to help potential enemies become allies. Vextar shifted uncomfortably. It is difficult to change the thinking of a lifetime, Teacher Henry. My people have been warriors for thousands of years. I understand, Henry said gently. Change is always hard. But look around this room. 3 weeks ago, you were preparing to hunt my crew for sport. Now you're sitting here having a philosophical discussion. If you can change that much in 3 weeks, imagine what you might become in 3 years. Jake Morrison had been quiet through most of the lesson, but now he raised his hand. Doctor, I'm still confused about something. Why did the military create the enhanced humans in secret? Why not tell everyone about the program? Henry sighed deeply. Because people fear what they don't understand, Jake. If the general population knew that there were enhanced humans living among them, it would cause panic. People would assume the enhanced humans would try to take over, just like the Zephyrians, assumed they should conquer everyone they met. Sam walked away from the window and joined the circle. The secret isn't to hide forever, he said. The secret is to prove through our actions that we're not a threat to normal humans. When people see that enhanced humans use their abilities to protect rather than dominate, the fear will fade. Dr. Sarah Kim, the elderly enhanced human who looked like somebody's grandmother, smiled warmly. It takes patience, lots of patience, but it works. Danny Rodriguez had been unusually quiet since the rescue. Now he looked directly at Henry. Doc, I have to ask, was everything about our research mission real? Were you really studying alien energy signals, or was that just a cover story? Henry chuckled. The research was completely real, Danny. I may be retired from the military, but I'm still a scientist. I was genuinely interested in those energy readings. Then how did you know the Zephyrians would capture us? Lisa asked. I didn't, Henry admitted. When we were captured, I was just as surprised as you were. But I've been in dangerous situations before. And I've learned that there's usually a way out if you think creatively. Vextar leaned forward with interest. You mean you didn't plan any of this? Not the capture, no. But once it happened, I knew what resources I had available. Henry looked fondly at Sam and the other enhanced humans. I helped train these people 40 years ago, but they've grown far beyond what I originally taught them. They've become something magnificent. Kate Brooks, who had been working on a tablet computer, looked up with a smile. Teacher, we just received a message from Earth. The council wants to know if you're ready to come home. Henry considered this. What do you think, Vextar? Are you ready for me to leave? The former war chief looked alarmed. Leave? But there is still so much to learn. That's exactly why I should go, Henry explained. The best teachers know when their students are ready to learn on their own. One of the other Zephyrians, an older female named Texra, spoke up. But what if we make mistakes without your guidance? Sam answered her. Then you learn from the mistakes and do better next time. That's what the old man taught us. Failure isn't the end of learning. It's part of learning. Henry stood up slowly and walked around the circle, looking at each Zephyrian face. "You've already made the hardest decision," he told them. "You chose to question everything you thought you knew about strength and power. That takes real courage." He stopped in front of Vextar. "I have a proposition for you." "Yes, teacher?" "Take what you've learned back to your people. Not all of them. Just a few at first. Show them that there's another way to live. Be patient with the ones who don't understand immediately." Vextar nodded slowly. "And if they refuse to listen?" "Then you keep being an example," Henry said simply. "You show them through your actions what they could become. Eventually, some of them will get curious." Lisa stood up suddenly. "Doctor, could we stay here? Could we help with the teaching?" Henry looked surprised. "Lisa, you have your own career to think about. You're all young, with your whole lives ahead of you." Jake joined Lisa. "But this is important, isn't it? What you're doing here could change the entire galaxy." Danny nodded agreement. "Doc, in 3 weeks I've learned more about leadership and courage than I did in 10 years of military service. If we could help other species learn what we've learned..." Henry felt tears forming in his old eyes. "Are you sure? This won't be easy work. It could take decades to see real results." "Teacher Henry," Vextar interrupted, "if these humans are willing to help, we would be honored to learn from them as well." Sam walked over and put his hand on Henry's shoulder. "What do you say, old man? Want to start a school?" Henry looked around the room at the faces surrounding him. Humans and aliens, young and old, all united by a desire to learn and grow. This was what he had dreamed of 40 years ago when he first started training enhanced humans. "A school," he repeated softly. "Not a military program or a secret project. Just a place where people can learn to be better than they were." Kate was already working on her tablet. "I can start contacting other enhanced humans. A lot of them would love to be part of something like this. And I can reach out to other species," Vextar added eagerly. "Not all aliens are hostile. Many are just afraid and defensive. If they saw that the Zephyrian Empire could change..." Henry sat back down in his chair and looked out the window at the combined fleet. Human ships and Zephyrian vessels floating together, sharing knowledge and resources. It was a sight he had never expected to see in his lifetime. "All right," he said finally. "Let's build a school, but not just any school. Let's build a place where the galaxy's predators can learn to become protectors." Tommy Chen, the young computer expert, grinned broadly. "What should we call it?" Henry thought for a moment, then smiled. "How about the Academy for Advanced Thinking?" "That sounds kind of boring," Lisa said with a laugh. Sam chuckled. "How about we just call it Henry's Place?" The old man shook his head firmly. "Absolutely not. This isn't about me. This is about what all of you can become." Vextar raised a clawed hand. "Teacher, may I suggest a name?" "Of course. The Pack Academy, because you taught us that the strongest predators hunt together, not alone." Henry smiled widely. "Perfect. The Pack Academy it is." As the group began planning their new school, Henry reflected on how strange life could be. He had started his career studying alien biology, spent decades training super soldiers in secret, and now, in his 70s, he was becoming a teacher, again. But this time, he wasn't just training humans to fight aliens. He was teaching everyone, human and alien alike, to think beyond their limitations and become something better. Outside the window, more ships were arriving. Word was spreading across the galaxy about a place where former enemies could learn to become friends. It would take time, patience, and a lot of hard work. But for the first time in years, Henry felt truly hopeful about the future. The galaxy was full of predators, but maybe, with the right teaching, it could be full of protectors instead. In the end, that would be humanity's greatest contribution to the stars, not superior weapons or advanced technology, but the simple idea that anyone could choose to be better than they were. And sometimes, Henry reflected, that was the most revolutionary idea of all.